Let's start with the fact that you're a programmer. What was the first program you've ever written, or the first one that you remember?
The first memory I have of programming was probably in middle school, and I remember it was recess, and they had this time period where you could read books, and the other kids were like reading comic books and stuff. And for some reason, I had gotten into this idea that I wanted to get into computers, and I was playing with computers at home. And so I got this book, I think from the library. And it was called like How to Learn Java in 30 Days. So I was reading this book at the recess, and I didn't understand anything. And I remember I went home and I tried to get this thing working. And if you've ever written a Java program, the first lines are like public static void main string args or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's just like it's so foreign and it's so difficult to get started. And so I was kind of frustrated. I was like, I don't understand anything that's happening in this book. So the first thing I wrote was probably just like a Hello World app in Java. But I felt like I was so confused about what was actually happening that I later learned a bit of PHP, and PHP was like more fun for me because it was like, oh, just print out what you want, It didn't have all this complexity around it. So then I got more into PHP. I started building like some simple websites. I think learned some HTML. So I think that was my introduction to programming, at least the very beginning part.
Yeah. Java has a lot of, out of all the hello worlds you can possibly write, Java is the one where I think it's the longest.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting because Java is often, at least for a long time, was used as the primary programming language to teach people how to program, or at least about object-oriented programming. I think most universities have now switched, and high school switched to Python. I'm not sure if that's the case.
Probably better. It's easier to learn. It makes it less scary. There's like less of a hurdle.
And certainly none of them use PHP. I love PHP, and I feel like it's a dirty secret I have to keep private to myself, like it's somebody I'm seeing on the side or something like that, because it's just not a respected programming language, because I think there's so many ways you can write poor code with PHP, which is why it's not respected.
Yeah, it's a scripting language more so, although of course Facebook built like a huge stack on top of it and valuable company. But I still love Ruby to this day. Ruby is probably my favorite language. Python's great too, but I just love the idea behind Ruby, that it's like, let's make it easier for the human, harder for the computer, and make it a joy to be expressive and all these things. So I was never the best computer scientist, but I was a good hacker. I could rapidly prototype products and using languages like Ruby. Do a lot of computer science programs still use like Lisp and Scheme and things like that?
No, they do that's if you're hardcore. If you're legit, you're going to do some of the functional languages.
Yeah.
I think there's a few others that popped up, but Lisp is a distant memory for a lot of people. That's like somebody has to, like, you go to the library, you dust off the book.
Yeah.
But Scheme a little bit. I think if you're studying, there's courses about languages themselves, like programming languages.
Yeah.
Lisp might be one of those, you know how there's languages that nobody uses anymore, like ancient languages?
Yeah.
You might have to go to school in that same way for programming languages.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we used to use parentheses. I, of course, still use Emacs as the editor for most things that I do. And Emacs is a lot of the customization you can do is in Lisp.
Yeah.
And that's the language probably when I first really fell in love with programming is Lisp. Because for a long time throughout the earlier history of artificial intelligence, Lisp was the primary language, but it still had a life in the 90s and the aughts where some people would use it.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, functional language, but it just somehow didn't pick up. That said, I should say, sort of push back, PHP, I feel like it's still true that most of the web runs on PHP. Most of the backend is still PHP. So if you look at, it's like, the stuff that people don't talk about is like what runs most systems in the world, what runs most back end, what runs most front end.
Yeah.
JavaScript, HTML.
JavaScript, I think the Stack Exchange surveys show JavaScript's the most popular language in the world, I think, right?
Oh, yeah. In terms of programmers and numbers of, I wonder.
By survey of number of programmers on Stack Overflow.
Oh, yeah. But that's also the cutting edge, right? Those are the people that are just like excitedly writing code.
That's true.
I wonder if there's people that are just like maintaining gigantic code bases.
Yeah. I feel like the amount of Java out there just running industrial systems has got to be enormous. And then, of course, in the banking industry, finance, it's like even older stuff, Cobalt and whatnot. But
I've been actually looking for somebody to interview who represents Cobalt and Fortran, like who's the figure still there that holds the flag. I did, with Java, founder of Java, creator of Java, creator of Python, creator of C++, but nobody wants to hold the flag for Cobalt and Fortran, even though some of the most important systems in the world still run on those.
Yeah.
Like power systems and infrastructure systems, which is fascinating, and ATMs and stuff like that. Like a lot of stuff that we rely on that just works. And the reason we don't change it because it works well.
Yeah.
It's written in languages that people don't use anymore.
Yeah. That'd be a cool series of interviews. Get the stuff that's like tech that was invented 40, 50 years ago, but still is being used widely. I mean, Emacs is an example of that.